Recording will
Oh,
start.
there we are. We are live. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to, it's Thursday, so it's 8:30. So welcome to this week's edition of Mauls, Balls and All. Live through the Ruck This and Irish Rugby Banter Facebook groups. Joining me this evening are two familiar faces from the group. We have Mike Reedy and we have Dara Weston is joining us. Also our guest this evening. God, I nearly hit a button there which could have muted everything. I don't know what's going on here. Joining us this evening is our guest is he has played for Ireland. He has played for London Irish. He has played for Ulster. He has played for Castra. He has played for Dungannon. He has also coached Dungannon. He has coached the Seattle Saracens, and he has coached the Houston Sabercats. Our guest this evening is Justin Fitzpatrick. Justin Fitzpatrick, all the way from Texas. How the hell are you? Are you well?
I'm very well, thank you, Peter. Thanks for having me on the show.
Not at all. Glad to have. Oh, and he also writes a mean article about rugby and all things leadership and relation to that. So good to have you, Justin. Good to have you. How's things in Texas?
Very good. The weather is lovely this time of year. Not so much in the summer, but it's beautiful this time of year. Blue skies, and it's nicely warm.
And you don't get sunburnt if you walked out to get your mail or something like that?
Not yet. That comes in a couple of months.
All right, okay. All right, gentlemen, listen, we have, there's loads to talk about. But what I want to do is, Justin, just a quick one for yourself. London Irish, your former club coming back, I think it's September next year is the plan to relaunch after it will be 3 years, I think, in administration at that stage. That's good news, but also kind of bittersweet. The very sad news that Eddie Jordan passed today.
Absolutely.
Feelings about all that?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, I saw probably like the rest of you guys that Eddie Jordan had passed this morning. So, God rest his soul. I mean, what an iconic Irish sports business personality, right? But very, very disappointed to read that, and thoughts with his family at this difficult time. In terms of London Irish, I mean that was all being talked about a couple of 3 weeks ago, and incredibly excited about that. Hopefully, and we'll find out in due course, I'm sure, what the continuity plan is. I know his family are involved heavily with his businesses, so hopefully they have the same passion for rugby. I think it's a great opportunity with London Irish. It's got an iconic global brand. It's well placed within London. Obviously, a big Irish community there and beyond. And I'm excited to see what's going to happen with it. You know, will they be looking to get back in the Premiership? Will they be coming to the URC? You know, how are they going to do it? And have someone like Eddie Jordan and his broader group involved in that process, and seeing what they did to revitalize F1 back in the day. I think it's incredibly exciting for rugby, as you know, above and beyond London Irish.
Do they, Justin? People have asked me this, and to be honest with you, I don't know. And I knew you were coming on tonight, so I said, "Well, you'd be the best person to ask." Do London Irish have a ground? Do they have a ground as yet, or what is the situation there with that, or do you know?
In terms of going forward, I don't know. I mean, before they went into liquidation, they moved up to Brentwood to play there. There are, a number of. A small number of soccer clubs within the area that there's potential for ground sharing. So there are options. They moved from their spiritual home in Sunbury in terms of playing back, I think, in 1999, and went to Harlequins and then went up to Reading, and then down to Brentwood, which seemed to be very, very popular from what I could gather. And they still have a training ground that the amateur community club run very well within Sunbury. I'm like everybody else, I'm excited to see what happens next, and just thankful. Hopefully everything plays out, and that they're back playing rugby as it should be.
And any involvement by yourself, or would that be no?
Well, it's a bit of a commute, isn't it?
Well, I know, but I mean, if you were asked, say, Justin, if you were asked,
I have incredibly fond memories of my time at London Irish, and as I say, really, really excited when I saw this happy. But I'm kind of happy and seconded in the United States. No to that, but
all right, all right, okay, just thought I'd ask. Okay, right, gentlemen, let's moving on to what was on the agenda. By the way, Alan Dorman, good evening all. Are you well in yourselves? Yes, thank you very much. Alan, you are robbing my catchphrase, which I neglected to say this evening. Okay, Justin, I'll come to you first on this. The Irish rugby team's scorecard, Justin, for the Six Nations, A, B, C, D, B minus, what would you give them and why?
Yeah, I mean, I think, like we all, there's been a lot of opinions, a lot of articles written over the last wee while, really over the last fortnight after losing to France in Dublin, a bit of doom and gloom. But I take a slightly different perspective on it, and look at the trends over a period of time, and if you look at, we had our head coach disappearing off to coach the Lions, which, I couldn't remember off the top of my head the last time that had happened, that we'd produced a Lions head coach. Probably not in my generation anyway. Have to go back further into the mists of time. But that's incredibly positive. And, having Simon Easterby stepping up, who I've got a lot of time and respect for, and giving him an opportunity to learn, to test himself. It's one thing being the 2IC in a group. It's another thing to lead it and have all that responsibility on him. So I think for his development and for the continuity of Irish rugby, that was a great call, great opportunity for him. New fly half coming in, Pendergrass. I think overall he did very well, and I look at it in the last, since 2004, this is our 8th Triple Crown. You look back into the last century, we won 4 over 100 years. So, I think it's probably a mark of where we are currently, with expectations so high that it's so disappointing that we didn't either win a championship, which, nobody in the history of the tournament's won 3 times on the trot, right? It's an incredibly tough competition, and really for the, for a purple patch for 30 minutes in the French game, we could be sitting here having a very, very different conversation about it. So I think overall it's a positive season. We've got a lot out of it. We're probably going to have a good chunk of Lions going away. We'll be able to blood and test out the next generations of players and the summer tour. So overall, I think B plus.
All right. Okay. Thanks, Justin. Good points and well made. Dara Weston, what would you give them and why? Dara frozen.
Yeah, I think Justin summed it up perfectly. I think we've kind of become. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, I think Justin summed it up perfectly. I think we've kind of become victims of our own success, and we went into it kind of assuming, we get a Grand Slam, or if we don't get the Grand Slam, we get the title, and I mean, the main positive for me is, we had some good performances. There was some games we could have done better in. We could have put more points on the board. We only lost one game. We came through it largely unscathed injury-wise. All our main contenders for the Lions, thankfully, came through uninjured. Like Doris, I think Doris kind of cemented himself as the lead for captain.
We'll come on to that. We'll come on to that, Dara.
Yeah,
we'll come on to that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'd say B, solid B.
Okay. Thanks, Dara. Mike, your thoughts on what score would you give the Irish team for that Six Nations?
I'd be I'd be inclined to drift with the same as the lads. You know, I think it's actually almost beneficial to us going forward that we didn't win this Six Nations, because
What? Why?
it developed an air of almost entitlements amongst some of our supporters. The newer younger supporters. It's not. I don't want to label younger supporters as anything other than supporters. But however, Ireland has. You've even heard people like Brian O'Driscoll saying like there's an air of arrogance developing amongst some of our supporters as well. And when you get, I won't even mention what happened. The other group that fucking shot an own goal there a few weeks ago. But anyway, I think it might stand us in good stead. You know, it's a kind of a reality check that nobody is entitled to win these things. Like Justin just said. In the history of the competition, no team has gone on to win 3 in a row, and it's not because it's been easy to do. Obviously, I mean I'm going back for a long time, as you all know, as a supporter of Ireland and
Devil era days, Mike.
Yeah, back when. But
you coached Jack Kyle in minis, didn't you, Mike?
Well, yeah, back in the day. Yeah. But we won't talk about that. That's for another day. But
I tell you, sorry, go on, Mike. Yeah.
No, I think no. Listen, there's loads of improvement to be made, and there's certain areas of the game that we have regressed in. You know,
yeah, we're coming on to that, Mike. You have an awful habit of doing that. We're coming on.
Want to in full report, like, okay, I'll give us a B.
Give us a bit. A B. Okay. All right. Mm-hmm. Justin, I want to read you something now. And Mike was touching on it there, but it was a conversation that I think needs to be had in its entirety. I was reading an article, a very good article, actually, could have been written by herself, but on Sky Sports. And one of the paragraphs, Justin, that was said, I'll just read it here. Let me just put up and on my glasses on. Said, in a marked change of style, Ireland's possession, just talking about the Ireland's performance in the Six Nations, what we're talking about. In a marked change of style, Ireland's possession dropped to 50% across their 5 fixtures. With their territory at 54%, they only scored 17 tries. France scored 30, England scored 25. Finishing with the fewest number of scores of any side on turnover ball, which was just 1 try. Now, Mike alluded to there, we've regressed a bit, Justin. And if I think about it, and I think Donald Lenihan said it, if we look back to 2013 and the narrow loss we had to New Zealand, a game I was at, heartbreaking. 5 championships later, over the 12 years after that, it just seems that this current team, which I think was highlighted in this Six Nations, is not really where it's not at the same level 2 or 3 years ago. Justin, what would you think?
Well, I mean, stats are fantastic, and they certainly give you a snapshot into certain things. But are we where we were? Well, it's hard to say. I mean, as I said, you've got a new head coach in for the season. You've got a new fly half. You've got some players that are senior players who've been around a long time. They're retiring. I'm positive about where we are. Because there are some areas, some quick fixes that we can do to improve ahead of the next World Cup, right? And we've got time to do that, and if we look back to the 2-year period at the last couple of World Cups cycles, we have been further ahead of where we are, and yet we haven't jumped on past the quarterfinals. So I see it more of an opportunity with some work-ons that we've won a Triple Crown. We've lost one game really in the space of a 30-minute purple patch, and we could all perhaps offer opinions on areas that aren't necessarily that difficult for us to improve on and fix. There's a lot of upside there and a lot we can do over the next 2 years to position ourselves to take that next leap forward in the next World Cup, if that makes sense.
But Justin, we have New Zealand this year.
For sure.
Right. So is it going to be fixed by then?
Well, sure. Yes, we do. And we've got time to do that. And that's one of the great things about the system the RFU's put in place there, in terms they do generally have more access to the national team players than, say, the RFU and the English players do. Right. So we're able to take bigger gains. And that's part of the reason we've been so successful over the last 2 decades previously. So, as I said, I'm still very optimistic. I mean, New Zealand aren't having a great time of it themselves. They're not at the same high levels that we've all known and come to expect them to have over the last 30, 40, 50 years, right? So a good time to take them. And again, if we look at always as a priority wanting to win the next game, and that, those are admirable goals, and I'm not suggesting we don't have them, but in the scheme of things, what is the most important thing for us as a union? I would say the number one goal is to make the semi-finals of the next World Cup. So, while there are intermediate goals between them, and winning is certainly helps and strengthens, and it is certainly a habit you want your players and team to be in, I think, there are some route markers along the way that I'm sure that the national team staff and the union have put in place to breach that goal. Right, and I think that's the most important thing. We'll know more when we play New Zealand, for example. But no, I'm upbeat about where we are and the growth that this team can have.
Okay, and one final thing. Sorry, Jared. Before I move on to you, Justin, we had. I think I mentioned this to you. If I did, or I can't remember if I did, but we had Victor Costello on the show. He's been on a few times. And he always makes this point that one of the issues with the Irish rugby way of thinking has always been, let's win the next game. Let's win the next game. It has never been, well, let's think about in a year's time, we're going to be here. In 2 years' time, we're in a World Cup. What players are we going to blood? And it seems to be, let's win the next game. Let's win the next game. There seems to be, not that there's none, but there seems to be limited forward planning, forward thought as to where this squad, be it 23, 36, whatever, if you're going to a World Cup or whatever, Autumn Nations Tour, whatever the hell it is. It just seems to be, let's win the next game. How do we win the next game? Would you agree with that, what Victor said, or?
I think, look, there's, and it's twofold. So, yes, I do agree with Victor to a point, although, it's interesting. I was listening to Craig White, who used to run the strength and conditioning 20 odd years ago with the RFU. And during his time with the union, Liam Hennessy, who revolutionized the way that we approach S&C within the union, made a presentation, said, look, if we want to get to this point, which I would suggest we're at now and have been for a period of time, then it's going to take 10 years. We have to plan not for the players that we've got now, but for the ones that are, still in school, right? And put in the processes. And to lesser or greater extent, we've done that. And that's why it's not the only reason, but it's a large part of the success that we're having, that we're physically developing and technically developing and tactically developing good players, right? And we've got a good pipeline of players via that system and that methodology. So, I talked about goal setting there a moment ago. So, yeah, the most important goal, and again, I'm not making the goals for the national team or the union, but I would say is probably the number one goal is to make the semi-finals in its Rugby World Cup. That would make sense to me. Along the way, you can't expect to turn up at the World Cup having lost everything in between, right? There has to be some short-term and medium-term goals, right? And you've got to add into that as well, us, with that 30 minutes, if we just take that, and there were other things that we could have improved upon over the course of Six Nations, but just say we changed that 30 minutes and we had parity going into the last 15, 20 minutes of the game, and we'd won a Grand Slam. I think there's about 3 or 4 million euro difference in
Yeah.
From finishing first to finishing third. Now, that has an effect on the financial planning for the next 12 months and probably beyond, right, in terms of union budgeting and all the rest of it. So we can't give up the short-term goals, but also, getting to a semi-final, you're 80 minutes away from getting to a final. Anything can happen when you get into those knockout stages. And as we've shown, we can beat anyone on the day. Right. So, it's a balancing act, right? And sure, everyone's happier when we're winning. But I think in the growth of the team, and I think back to 2003, we were going for a championship under Eddie O'Sullivan. And so with the English, and we had the last game at Dublin against the English. And the previous 2 seasons, I think the Scots and the Welsh, or the Welsh and the Scots, I can't remember exactly, had mugged off the English and ruin their chances of winning a Grand Slam. And that was their goal going into the 2003 World Cup. And bearing in mind, we had a good side at that time. We played some good rugby. We were well positioned, and we got smoked that day. And a lot of that was talking to Clive afterwards, who coached me at London Irish, and some of the players that I knew there. A lot of that was bent up frustration. They did not want to be 3 years on the trot in the same position they'd been the 2 seasons before, having been the bridesmaid, not the bride, right? So sometimes I think, there's more to be learnt from not quite getting there to give you that added bit of motivation to knuckle down and improve, and I think we've got a good system.
Yeah.
Great coaches. We've got some really exciting players coming through. I don't think it's the end of the world, and I think that we can use this to plow on as motivation.
All right. Okay. Again, good point. Thank you, Justin. Dara, your thoughts on this? The change of style, the possession has dropped 50%, territory 54%. We only scored 17 tries as opposed to France scoring 30, England 25.
Yeah. I can remember most of what you were saying there.
Yeah.
Justin's last part reminded me of a fella I met at the conference in America, and he said, you kind of perfect it by the second wife, and you improve things on the second wife, and you tend to have perfected by the time you get to the third wife. And I was like, Jesus, that's a really American way to say things. But no, I think, look, Justin made some very good points. One interesting point was when you were talking about the planning there, I genuinely believe that what Italy are seeing now in their renaissance is kind of reaping some of the seeds that Conor O'Shea sowed there in their youth system, because they have a lot of young players coming through, and there's a lot more interest in club rugby in Italy. As to, I mean, again, I'll defer to Justin on this, but I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on, okay, let's call a spade a spade. The Irish team at the moment is predominantly a Leinster team. In the last few years, as Ireland's attack success has gone down, we've had the Nienaber effect embedding into Leinster, where we've become, as a Leinster fan have seen, we've become more defensive. Do you think that's having an impact on the national squad as well with the players? I mean, if week in, week out, they're used to kind of playing this kind of way, is it hard for Andy, who only gets them for a couple of weeks pre-tournaments and then, has them for maybe 2 months during the tournament, to undo all that kind of Leinster ethos and Leinster style of play that they have?
So two things. Just to go back on your point with Italy, and I think you're 100% correct. Some of those seeds were laid by Conor O'Shea, but also, and probably, and I'm sure Conor would say this himself, Stephen Aboud, who built the Irish,
yes,
was there and is back there now. And and it's no surprise to me that they are starting to develop great young players coming through. So I think the future is very bright, built on Irish expertise. To answer your question about is it having a negative effect? I think, well, sometimes you have to go back to go forward, right? And I would be very, very surprised if any of the provincial coaches don't, as they're hired and as they move forward into a new season, don't have to present a plan as to priorities of where they're driving the team and and changes that they're going to be making and doing, right? So to be rubber stamped, right? I mean, it's a top-down system, and if Leinster have focused on their defence, there's good reason for that, and I think that probably will bear a lot of fruit moving forward. Maybe and hopefully for them it does this season, and and they win a European Cup off the back of it. But over time, if not this season, moving forward, right?
No, it has to be this season because we need Cian Healy to win 5 European Cups before he leaves.
Yes.
Well, it doesn't look like Ulster's going to win it this year. So
fingers crossed.
As long as there's an Irish side win it, I'm happy with that. But yeah, so I think there is a lot of reliance currently on the Leinster side. So obviously there's going to have some knock-on effect if they're riding the crest of a wave that's going to transfer if they're positively or negatively, right? So you're 100% right, but I do not think that it's something that's happening without consultation, right? There's a reason he was recruited to come in and look after that team, and I'm sure both Leinster and the national team will bear the fruits of that over time.
All right,
cool. On your point, Peter, about the IRFU, I would agree with what Victor said, but I would go kind of further. I think the IRFU are, and I'm not saying this in an overly negative way, they're financially driven, and they know that wins put bums on seats.
But every rugby union, though, Dara, is financially driven. They have to be, sure.
No, but look at the French, the classics of the French, and they decide to blood a load of new players, the year of a World Cup or something like that, or the year before. But I think the IRFU always put their best 15 out. And I think, part of that is, look, we've talked about before the corporate hospitality type thing and all that. Plus, the IRFU are unique insofar as they're supporting the 4 provinces. And that's why, we've been so successful, because by supporting the provinces, they have ultimate say over how players are used, when players are rested, etc. Whereas, otherwise, we've seen when players go abroad, they just get flogged to death. They don't get proper rest, etc.
Particularly top 14.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think that could be a part as well. That they do they have more overheads. And so, maybe there isn't time to kind of, just not take Autumn International seriously and just throw 15 young lads out there and get experimental with it. I think there's more pressure maybe to consistently perform, to try and keep. Now, some would say there's a negative to that, in that as we've become more successful over the last few years, I think we've got a lot of kind of like soccer bandwagon jumpers coming in to rugby, and then these would be the lads who don't really understand, the way rugby is played, and like the refs getting abuse, but also part of that is just social media and the fact that everybody's hiding behind a keyboard, but like refs and players,
I see a comment there, Dara. I see a comment there from Sonia, which we will come on to now in just a minute. Yeah. Mike Reedy, your thoughts on what I've asked Justin and Dara, the style of play, the difference, all that sort of stuff.
I hope, but Justin, that your answer to Dara's question about Nienaber, I hope the confidence you have. I don't share that confidence right now, to tell you the truth, and I don't. I'm not going to hide. I'm not going to lie and say I do.
No, you never do, Mike. Go on. You always say what you think. Go on. Go on.
Go on, have your anti-Leinster rant. Go on.
Go on. Have your rant. Go on.
Make no mistake about it. I want Leinster to win the fucking European Cup. I do, because none of the rest of the provinces have any chance of winning it. Well, they have. They're in it. You can't say they haven't got a chance. You're wrong to do that. But they have the best chance of winning another European Cup for an Irish team. And I genuinely want Leinster to do that. Are they going to do it? We'll have to wait and see. Now, I think Ireland has regressed in part because of the Nienaber effect, because you did allude to it, Justin, that we're going backwards to possibly go forwards and work on the defence first. But our defence was a lot more leaky in this world, in this Six Nations, than it has been in the two previous ones. When we won the Grand Slam in 2023, we only conceded 2 tries to one team in that entire competition, and less one try to the all other 4 nations, and that was Italy. Italy scored 2 tries against us, and we only conceded 1. Now we're conceding a lot more scores. Our attack has become bland, almost predictable. A big problem is our speed, our ruck speed. Our ruck speed was we were number 1 in the whole world ruck speed in the 2023 World Cup. We are now bottom of the entire Six Nations. That's not good enough, lads, genuinely, and that has a massive effect on. We're predictable. France just it was almost lazy defending France against us. We were in there 22 for 20 minutes at the beginning of the game, and we couldn't generate a score. They just fanned out across the pitch, and our ruck speed was too slow to if you got quick ball, you have a better chance. You have a better chance of breaking them down, but we didn't. And another thing that concerns me as regards what Nienaber is trying to do, he was in a completely different situation with South Africa, because he had Curtly Orensa and Cheslin Colby on the wings, like absolute speedsters. We don't have those kind of players, and we were badly exposed out wide all throughout the Six Nations by everybody, and that's a bit of a concern. Now, as an attacking force, we've been mainly dependent on our set piece, particularly line out. We score a lot of tries from line outs. Our maul wasn't as effective as normal, but you know what? It's if you see green shoots coming from, first of all, we'll have to see it from Leinster, because Leinster are, as we all agree, producing like most of almost the entire team, and for Ireland to be successful, Leinster need to be first of all need to be successful, and we need to see results. I genuinely, I'd like to see Cian Healy get his 5th star, and I'd like to see Leinster win it again, because it's only good for Irish rugby if they do.
Okay. Sorry, go on, Mike.
I don't have the answers. I don't have all the answers. I wish I had, but
I don't think any one of us here do have the answers.
No.
But Justin, one thing I was intrigued about was the lack of the execution metrics by Ireland in the opposition red zone, being held up and just not bloody scoring. It has increased. Is that purely a coaching thing, Justin?
Well, again, who runs your attack, right? That's predominantly run, off your 9 and 10, right? So we've just blooded a new 10 who I think's got a lot of upside to him, but it takes time, right? Rome wasn't built in a day, and I think also, and again, I don't know the ins and outs of preparation for this year, but if you're coming in as a caretaker coach for a season while Andy's away, you're not going to be rocking the boat and changing things radically, right? It's going to be more of the same. So did I expect there to be a lot of new different things coming into this championship? No, I didn't, for those reasons. And that may be, you got to remember how how much analysis goes on between the different teams. They know each other inside out. They're playing against each other. The Scots, the Welsh, and the Italians every other week, right? So, I don't think it's all doom and gloom, and I think some of those fixes, and they're good points, and I could well be wrong, but I think that those are remedied fairly simply with a little bit of intentionality.
All right. Okay. Dara Weston, would you agree with what Justin just said there? That there are the metrics for our conversion in the opposition's red zone has dropped dramatically, basically. I mean, I can't remember the last. I think we were held up. Maybe Justin, you might know, or anyone can correct me. I think we were held up over the line 4 times. The whole thing, 5 times, something like that.
Yeah. Twice, more than that. Certainly more than that.
It's more than twice.
We've a new 9-10 partnership. We still haven't quite figured out who the 10 is. And then for the 9, when we didn't have Gibson Park, we had Murray, who was on his way out. So we're waiting on Casey to come back from injury, or whatever. Front row, with Keane gone, we've had to experiment. The last game we had to experiment with a few others. Who do we have if Porter gets injured, God forgive, or something like that. Second row and the back 3, we've almost an embarrassment of riches in the second row, flankers and the 8s, and so we're having kind of lads coming in and out of team. Is it going to be Conan? Is it going to be Van der Fleer? Is it going to be who's going to be in? So I think there's a lot of movement trying to keep everybody happy, and I suppose give everybody their place. And I think, as Justin said, look, we've joked about it before, that when your mum would go away on holidays and leave you alone in the house, she'd leave the list on the fridge of what you had to do, what you hadn't to do. And I think to a certain extent Andy left that for Simon, kind of like, look, these are the things we want to get done, so that I can pick the maximum number of lads for the Lions. So
all right. Okay, Mike, any last thoughts on this before we move on?
Basically, famous what the lad said. I mean, the quickness. It's the main thing that has slowed or stopped us scoring is our ruck speed. We're not getting quick enough ball. I mean, prior to when Johnny Sexton was playing, all the time we were number 1 in the world as I say ruck speed. We had 3 options off 10 every ball. Every time the scrum half got the ball, he had an option out the back, fucking side. There's several options. Now we have 1 maybe, and that's mainly where we have regressed for me, and it's probably we've also lacked a bit of accuracy. We've the amount of knock-ons and handling errors that we incurred in this 6 alone was crazy, and like that could also be a Jonathan Sexton effect, because he wouldn't accept any level of complacency or stupidity, and he pushed. And he doesn't have the coaching badge and all that, but he could be very beneficial to Ireland going forward, with his experience and what he demands from each and every individual on that team. It mightn't suit everybody, but if it doesn't, you won't be there. It's as simple as that. If you don't,
he is the Roy Keane of rugby, Mike.
He pushes. Listen, he pushed himself beyond the limits on lots of occasions.
Yeah. All right. Okay.
It's not doom and gloom. It isn't. No.
It's not doom and gloom, but it's just worth talking about and exploring.
He's kind of half in. I know he hasn't his coaching badges, but he's in there as a mentor, a kicking mentor.
Yeah. All right. Hold on. We'll come on. Okay. Well, hold on.
Would you ever send around a list of what we're going to talk about?
Hello. Do you want to check your messages? Thanks. Okay, Justin. A comment there from Mike Sheedy. It's a bad time for the under-20s and Ireland Six Nations 2025, but both teams give us great memories over the years. Real rugby fans, we are so proud of both teams. What is another year? Now, the part of what Mike Sheedy, hi Mike, by the way, what Mike is saying there about the under-20s, the under-20s did not have a good tournament this year. Wooden spoon. one of the main feeders into the national setup. My thoughts on the under-20s this year was, I have no problem saying it, they've got some great players in that team. I just thought they were badly coached. Would you agree or disagree with that, Justin?
I don't know enough about that to say, to
Okay.
be quite honest with you. I know Doki was involved. Doki's a smart operator. He knows his stuff. What went on behind closed doors, I don't know. Disappointed that we didn't finish further up the table. But in a, and again, I hate to be a broken record here, but in a broader sense, one swallow doesn't make a summer, right? Look, if we were doing this every other year and doing badly, then I'd be more concerned, because it is an important feeder. It's not the whole pathway, but it's certainly a strong part of the pathway. But if you look back over the last 5 years, we've won a couple of times, we've come second, we've come third, and this is our an unusual dip. Right, I would be more interested to know how we do next year. Is this a one-off? Is this a pattern? If it's a pattern, what's the problem? Right, and I'm sure there are better men than us that are breaking that down and looking at it to see did they have they might have had some great players, and I must admit I didn't watch a whole lot of the under-20s, so I can't speak to specifics, but you've also got to understand as well, if we look back, and I haven't done the research on it, but I'm pretty confident on this. If you look at the under-20s from 5 years to 10 years ago, how many of them make it out of the academy into the provincial teams? How many of them play meaningful minutes? How many of them are there 2 or 3 years later on their second or third contract? And how many of them then make it on to be full Irish internationals? And I know, the year, I think 99, 98, when we won the under-19 World Cup, right? So a pretty good year. Out of that group of players that had been the world's best team that year, 4 went on to be internationals, with Brian O'Driscoll being the standout character. Out of the other names, a handful of them I recognise, that were playing there that had played for one or other provinces, but most of them I couldn't tell you from a bar of soap who they were, right? And and that'll be most years, right? Because every level you go up, people drop away for one reason or another, And so again, in the scheme of things, I take a more pragmatic look at it. Look, do we want to have any of our national teams not competing for trophies at the end of each calendar year? Of course we don't, right? We've got high expectations. We should have high expectations. But these things happen. Why they happen this year, I don't know. As I say, I'm sure there are better people than us that are breaking that down. Was it we didn't have enough talent? Was it the wrong game plan? Was it a bit of luck? Who knows, right? Let's see what happens next year.
All right. Okay. Thanks, Justin. Dara, your thoughts on this? The under-20s. It's one of. It's not the most important feeder, but it is one of the feeders into the national squad.
It is, but I think the thing we've got to realise is the under-20s doesn't feed 15 players into the national squad. You get a Sam Prendergast, you get a couple of gold nuggets out of it, but not every under-20 player makes it to the national squad. Also, bear in mind, those players are in that squad for a maximum of 2 years before they age out. I was looking this up earlier on. Ian Henderson has the most caps for the under-20s. How many caps do you think he has? 20.
20. I was going to say 18.
And the nearest person, there's another guy on 20 as well. And then the nearest is like 17. So it shows how short a career they have in the under-20s. Also, coaching, Richie Murphy was there 3-4 years. He's only properly gone in the last, is he even gone a full season?
Year and a half.
Since he went towards the end of last season. So the new head coach has only had them, so far. So I think, look, it's we can still, we can finish top of the under-20 Six Nations and have a load of players who come in and none of them particularly excel in the national level. They might be on the backups, or, they might go into the emerging team or the A's, or they might go onto the benches. Or you can finish last and you can get two absolute superstars who come out and, they go straight into the national squad nearly as starters. Yeah. So it's as you say, it would be ideal to see all our national teams performing well. But I think the under-20s is a strange one because they're only there for a very short period of time, and it's by the time they've all gelled properly as a team after 2 seasons, half of them are already gone. They're already aging out.
Yes, true. Very true, Dara. Very true. And a good point. Well made, and Justin too. Mike, your thoughts on this? The under-20s getting the wooden spoon.
I'm not.
I think the lads are bang on. I think Justin and Dara are
concerned. And purely, listen, lads, we've won 2 Grand Slams in a row at under-20 level, and almost won a third one. We drew with England, and that was, we hadn't lost a game until we played France this year. We hadn't lost a game at under-20 level in the Six Nations for 4 seasons, and we were missing five under-20s players from that squad during the course of the Six Nations. Spicer, the big lock for one of them, and using of, like, we were down some serious operators, and it's very difficult to replace the same with the same level, at that age group. And I'm not overly concerned. And we have, like, from last year's under-20s alone, we've got Postlethwaite and like at Ulster, and Hugh Gavin at Connacht. Ben O'Connor is now the established full-back at Munster. Like, these players are coming through, and they are feeding through for and like Postlethwaite was called into was he not called into he was in the Emerging Ireland team a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, he was.
He looks a fabulous centre. The players will, if they're good enough, they will feed through. And I like I really like that guy, that full-back from Leinster. He's obviously a bit part at the moment. Can't remember his name. Henry, full-back, very good in the end.
I know who you're talking.
We're concerned, but when you win like Grand Slams at under-20s level, back-to-back ones, and almost a third one, that means none of the rest of the 5 nations were winning, like, we're producing the same level of player. And that's almost 3 different teams, completely different lineups. So those players will.
Okay, sorry, Mike. I just want to read out Sonia's message. Good evening, Sonia. How are you? Because it's blocking Dara and Justin's faces here on the screen. Okay. Sonia says, "Evening, gents. The toxic nature of social media has infiltrated rugby fan forums, and it was shameful to witness personal abuse directed at a number of players. I'm happy enough that we won the Triple Crown. I think it's actually a good thing to have dropped down in rankings, but mindful that we don't drop below our current position. Think when Andy returns, there will be changes for the better. While I love Peter, Keane and Connor, it was the right time for them to bow out. Great to see our new... whatever continues on. Now, there you go. Justin, any thoughts about that, the social media...
Peter, sorry, can I just correct you on one thing about the under-20s? We didn't win the wooden spoon. We didn't get the wooden spoon because we did beat Scotland. You only get the wooden spoon if you lose all your matches.
That's correct.
Of course. Shane Burns' personal hate. Remember, he said that when we had him on, Justin, thanks, Sarah. Justin, your thoughts on this, what Sonia just said there, the social media shite that some of these players have to put up with. Should there be something put in place? I don't know how you do it or what way you do it. But the abuse it.
Yeah, I agree with Sonia. It's kind of a reflection on society that, people think it's okay to to say things online that they probably wouldn't say if they were standing next to you in the bar, right? Or in a queue or wherever. Do I think something should be done about it? I mean, I think no is the honest answer. You know, I'm very much a free speech advocate. I think it says when you say something stupid or offensive, it says more about you than it does about the people you're talking about. And, you know, just ignore it. And I remember back when John Redmond was the head of press for the RFU, we were going through a tough time at the you know, people, you know, as they do, you read the Sunday papers and you know, you look for the scores, and it's great when they say something nice about you, and it's, you know, it's hurtful when they don't, you know, and different players approach it in different ways. But John said something which has always stuck with me. He said, well, look, fellas, you know, and there was one particular journal at the time that was it was always negative. And
Neil Francis.
Actually, it wasn't, but I won't. I won't say who it was. And
Jones, what's your man's name? Stephen Jones.
No. I'm not going to say.
All right, go on.
Anyway, John got us all in a group. He had 10 minutes before we were starting or finishing something that we were doing. He said, "Look, who here respects the rugby opinion of said journalist?" And we all laughed because nobody, you know, he hadn't played or coached, or, you know, and we often didn't agree with what he said. And he said, "So why do you care what he says?" And, you know, it's a very valid point. You know, I mean, if someone's talking rubbish and you know that it's rubbish, why validate it by getting upset about it, right? You just ignore it. And that's easier said than done sometimes. But I thought that was a very good way of looking about it.
Yeah. But similar to that, my dad used to say, when I played the game, I played schools, that was all. But he used to say, when we were talking about playing sport, any sport, and talking about the Irish team, he said, why would you take offence from someone you wouldn't ask for advice?
Exactly.
You know.
And that's not to say you can't get good feedback from a number of different sources, right? But, you know, when it's always being negative, or, you know, as I think Sonia was alluded to, it's being offensive, then, you know, why validate it? Why give it any power whatsoever?
Yeah. Okay. Before we go on to our next point and our final point, as always, one more point, and then we go on to win, lose, or draw for the games that are coming up. Just a few comments from people who are watching. Alan Dorman, you are right, Pete. Badly coached. Okay, thanks, Alan. Gregor Galway says, evening all.
Yeah.
There's Gregor correcting me, as you rightly did, Dara. It wasn't a wooden spoon yesterday. Yeah, okay. Thanks, Gregor. Got that. My mistake. Kieran Ryan, winning 4 games. Hi, Kieran. Winning 4 games on Triple Crown, but people say this team is finished. No, I don't think we said that. Top 3 teams in Six Nations can and will beat each other on the day. France did to us what we did first game last Six Nations. This summer tour is massive for younger players to step up and take their chance. Good point, Kieran. It'll be interesting to see who travels on that summer tour. And that leads me nicely on to Justin. Johnny Sexton apparently is coming in to be the attack coach on that summer tour, with Goodman going to the lines. Is that a good move? I know the optics are great. The optics, Jesus, brilliant. Sexton, fantastic. But is it a good move for the players there? Is Sexton ready for this, do you think, being there yourself, ex-player, all that? I don't look. He knows all the moves. He knows all the attack moves. He knows all the loops, the run around. He takes the pass. He appears between the 12-13 channel, 13-14, 13-11 channel. He knows all that. But is it a good move for Sexton to take that coaching role on himself, or what do you think, Justin?
Well, when I read that, I was optimistic about it. I think that as you said, I mean, he was a great force for the positive and for change in Irish rugby over the last period of years. He was driving standards both at Leinster and Ireland, and and he knows his stuff and expects certain standards from himself and those around him. So all those things are very, very positive. He also knows this group of players. I'm sure there isn't anyone that he hasn't played with or against that will be involved in some capacity, right, on the summer tour. So he knows those guys. He's a great student of the game. My only reservation would be, is this a short-term gig, or is this something that he's looking to do longer term? If he's looking to do it longer term, personally, I would like to see him coaching full-time somewhere, whether that's in the Leinster Academy, whether that's with Leinster or one of the other provinces or so on and so forth. And I'm a great believer you can't be half pregnant. You're either pregnant or you're not pregnant. And if you're going to coach, you need to coach all the time. That's how you get better. Now, for a short-term gig like a summer tour, he's going to have more than enough ideas on and thoughts on what he wants to do. As you get longer into it, if you're not doing the daily work and you're not sharpening that saw, so to speak, you and solving problems that you don't necessarily or didn't necessarily solve as a player, right? And the game changes, it never stands still, then that becomes problematic, right? So if he likes this, and perhaps it's it's a first date kind of thing, do I like you, do you like me kind of a thing, and I'm all for it, and I think it will be positive. But if he's going to do it longer than that, I would advocate strongly that he is involved in a daily training environment so he can take all the things that he learned as a player and sharpen his skills as a coach.
That's a great point, Justin. That's a great point. Yes, I totally agree with that. Dara Weston, Sexton, your thoughts on Goodman going to the Lions, Sexton stepping in for as attack coach for the summer tour?
Yeah, look, I think as Justin said, he's been in the trenches. He knows the way the players need to think, the way the players should be acting. He knows drills inside out that he can impart to the lads. He's very lucky that he works for a company that's owned by a rugby-loving Irish billionaire.
Adair Glass, or what is it?
Ardagh Glass.
Ardagh
Collison owns it. Yeah, and after Johnny retired, you'd see him sitting next to your man Collison at the rugby games in Lansdowne. So he'll be given as much time off as he needs. Now I have an in-law who works in the company, and they say, well, they never really see Johnny anyway because he's always doing his own kind of project and stuff. Yeah. So secret squirrel stuff. So he doesn't have to be at the desk 9 to 5. But I would imagine, like Justin said, look, if he's going to take it seriously, maybe he goes into a role with, either a club or one of the provinces, and then tries to get up to national. And who knows? He might be kept on the payroll for a couple of seasons if he goes to Leinster or somewhere, But
you never know. Again,
it would have to be somewhere that he could bring. Mind you, some of the Leinster lads mightn't like to see him coming back into the dressing room because apparently he was a grumpy bollocks in the dressing room.
But I don't mind Sexton being a grumpy bollocks. As I said, he's the Roy Keane of rugby.
I don't know.
He has high standards, and he expects.
There's one thing. There's one thing for one of your teammates to be coming in, or your captain to be coming in and roaring at you. But when it's like the kicking coach coming in and roaring at the forwards, then I think they get a bit kind of like.
No. I know. Yeah, Mike. I know what you mean. Yeah, Mike. Your thoughts on this before we go on to a very brief last one before we go on to win, lose or draw. Go on, Sexton going into the coaching role.
I don't have a problem with it at all. He's been there, done it. Again, I agree though with what Justin said. Maybe he should serve his apprenticeship properly if he has intentions to do it on a full-time basis. The other point is Goodman going away with the Lions. I'm hoping that he learns something when he's away with the Lions, to be perfectly honest with you, because it hasn't been all rosy in the fucking house in his current position. So perhaps he may pick up a few from the other teams. that's the main benefit from the Lions. Really, is what players learning from different things from the other teams, and I hope that's the case, because it hasn't been great. So you know what? If Johnny Sexton goes in and does this job in the summer, and we come back absolutely flying, and we're doing all sorts, fucking hell, that's going to be hard to shift him.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Last point before we go on.
He can run for president against Conor McGregor.
He can.
I know who I'd be voting for, Johnny, every day.
Yeah. Well, Conor McGregor can go and do.
You're an outsider.
Take a long walk off a short pier. Anyway, all right. Anyway. Yeah. Well, there you go. All right. Mike Reedy, quickly, because we're fast running out of time. Doris or Atoje for Lions captain?
100%.
Briefly. Okay. Why?
Because Atoje is, to me, as we all know, is an absolute penalty machine. He must have conceded 7 penalties during the course of the Six Nations. He cannot, and also for what he did to Mac Hansen at the end of that game, it's not captain material for me. Lads, he's done a lot better than I expected him to do with England, to be honest. However, you can't stamp on it. You can't try to shake a guy's hand and stamp on his foot. That's embarrassing what he did. So he's not. Now, listen, that being said, Caelan Doris has had issues with referees.
Yes.
He seems to have issues speaking to referees, and that's something that needs to be addressed perhaps as well. I don't know. It's be up to Andy Farrell is picking it, lads. He's not going to pick Atoje over Doris.
Yeah, I don't know. Justin, Doris or Atoje? If it was those two, who would you go for?
Well, it was an interesting one, isn't it? I mean, obviously you want an Irish player captain of the Lions if at all possible. But I mean, Farrell knows both of these guys. You know, he would have been, I think I'm correct, Atoje would have been coming into the Saracen squad when he was, or at least coming out of the academy.
Yeah.
When he was there. Obviously, he's played with him for many years, so he'll know a lot about him, and you know that perhaps we don't, and so he'll have an idea of what he wants, and you know, I trust his judgment on it. Personally, I'd love to see Doris do it. I think you make a good point there regarding talking to the referees. That's a skill. It takes a bit of time to get it. There's a way of doing it. I think there's some improvement to be made there. But I mean, leads from the front. He's a talented player. So if he's picked, you know, I'll be excited. I won't be. You know, if it's not him and it is Atoje, I don't necessarily think that's a bad choice either.
Is there anyone else, Justin, in the mix for the captaincy apart from those two?
I think there probably is. I mean, but I think those are the two standout picks, and I think a lot of it probably going to come down to, I think, on you know, personalities and who Farrell thinks, like any coach, that who's going to be his voice in the changing room. You know, and again, that's why he knows both of them relatively well. So he's going to have a good idea on that. And you know, what's the combination composition of the squad, right? You know, how many Irish are going to be there? How many English, Welsh, Scots, etc. Because that'll have a bearing as well. You know, if it's 2/3 Irish, you know, is it a good thing or a bad thing to have an Irish captain? I mean, you can make an argument both ways, right? Because you've got a very, very short period of time to get those players in together, get them on the page, get the captain, you know, parroting in his own way the goals and the demands that the coaches put in on them. So, yeah, I mean, I don't think there's a bad choice out of those two, is my personal opinion.
I think, Justin, there will be one Welsh player going, and that's the open side, Jack Morgan.
Yeah, he had a good tournament. Yeah,
he did.
Yeah.
Okay, Dara, your thoughts briefly on Doris versus Atoje for captaincy.
I think
if those two, if they're the only choice.
Yeah, well, you gave me a dirty look when I suggested Finn Russell might be eligible. So we know your opinion on him. And in fairness, I think he's too much of a messer to be seen as a Lions captain. So I agree with Mike. I think Itoje didn't do himself any favors with that stamp on Mac Hansen. It didn't look good.
No.
But also, I mean, just as Justin said, if the team, in some ways, it's no harm that we didn't run away with the Six Nations this year, and there's a lot of good English players that stood up, and some Scottish players as well, because if you had 2/3 of the squad being Irish, then is there a pressure to appoint a non-Irish captain to get the fans behind, to make it more inclusive for all Four Nations fans, and not to just feel like they're following an Irish squad with a couple of other add-ons? But look, I hope Doris will get it.
Okay. All right. Okay, gentlemen, we're over time, so we're going to finish on this. This is our win, lose, or draw, Justin, for the games that are coming up this weekend. We're back to URC, thankfully, as some might say. First up, Justin, we have Glasgow are entertaining Munster. Glasgow at home, Munster travelling. Who do you think will win, lose, or draw in that game?
Well, I think this period of time when you haven't had many players away is often at the advantage of the team that's had the continuity in training and so on and so forth. So with that being said, I mean, if you're looking at what number 2 and number 5, Glasgow and Munster, not too much between them. I have a sneaking suspicion Munster might just edge it.
Okay. JF Munster. Okay. Sorry, second. Excuse me, I nearly forgot. The Irish women, the Six Nations is kicking off as well. So we have the Irish women are playing France in their opener. That's going to be a tough game. Any thoughts on that particular game?
Well, I mean, it's a tough one having the French first off, but I think if they can turn that over and they're coming into the championship with a lot of confidence and success from placing 1 and 2 in the Celtic Challenge, there'll be a rip roaring crowd, I'm sure, for them in the Kingspan.
First games in Cork, right?
I want to believe that they'll get a victory. I'm hoping they get one, but it'll, underestimating how difficult the task will be in that first game.
Yes.
But if they win that, then they're really in good shape, I think.
Yep. Okay. Next up, Justin, we have Bulls, Leinster travelling. Bulls entertaining Leinster. Before you answer, Justin, obviously I'm a Leinster fan. I don't think Leinster will win this.
Well, and again, I just said it's sometimes in the benefit of the team that's had continuity in training, and with so many Leinster players away, I'm sure that the group that's taken down will have not been involved. So. However, while there is great depth in the Leinster squad, the Bulls are no mugs, and it's a long way to go. It's hard. The weather's going to be different. I would favour the Bulls this time. I would agree with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, Dragons are entertaining your old team, Ulster.
Ulster, 100%. Head and heart.
Do you think Murphy's doing a good job up there, or do you think
I do.
Yeah,
I think he's the right man for where we are currently at. He's got a proven track record of developing young players. I think the combination of him and the new CEO Hugh Magaki is going to be a very good one. I think we've got to have patience with it. It's going to, everybody wants, we've just. Spent a large segment of the show talking about, are Ireland there? Are they not there? Can they do better? All the rest of it. The road to success is often right? It's not linear, and I feel that there's some good young players coming through. I think he's the right man, and he's got some good young coaches around him, and I think Hugh will do the right thing. He's very transparent, and I think that's important when you are on a journey and trying to get where you want to get to. I think that's important, and he knows the community, he knows the businesses. We've just got to be patient.
Okay, and last one, Justin. Ospreys are entertaining Connacht.
I think using there hasn't been that many Connacht players involved. I think Welsh Rugby's not in a great spot at the minute. I would put money on Connacht doing the job.
Okay, JF Connacht. Okay, Dara Weston, same to you. Glasgow entertaining Munster.
As you know, I'm contractually obliged to choose Munster. Married to a Cork.
Because your wife is from Cork.
You're married to a Barry Murphy from Cork.
Yeah. All right. Dara, the Irish women are taking on France in the opening round of the Women's Six Nations.
Yeah, it's going to be a tight game. I'm just glad.
Yeah.
I mean, for a first game, it's going to the only way it could have been worse would be taking on the Roses as first game. So,
no, we have them.
I'm going to say tight, but I'm hoping. Look, they normally get a big attendance at the Kingspan, so I'm hoping that'll push them and they'll get a win.
Parsons out with injury is a bit of a blow.
Yeah. It's
all
a
right,
bit of a blow, but I'm still hoping they'll do the job.
Yeah. All right. Bulls entertaining Leinster. I'm not confident. Justin isn't confident. What do you say, Dara?
Yeah, I mean, okay, in previous years we would have sent out a kind of a younger squad, but we've sent out Barrett and Snyman as well. So, I mean, okay, there's the Saffas love to go on about the altitude of Loftus Versfeld.
Yes.
But, yeah, look, I never really expect a win when we travel down there, especially just after the Six Nations, given we had so many players involved. But given the fact they've sent Snyman and Barrett, I don't know.
Well, go on. Who's going to win? We're way over time. Who's going to win?
But I'll say Leinster. All right, just to be awkward.
Okay, and Dragons are playing Ulster. Dragons at home playing Ulster.
I'd say Ulster.
Okay, and Ospreys are entertaining Connacht.
I think Connacht will actually do it. Yeah, I think it may not be the most exciting matches, but I think Connacht will do it.
I tend to agree with you, yes. Okay, great stuff. Thanks, Dara. Okay, Mike, your last voice on the show tonight. Glasgow entertaining Munster. Munster being your team.
I know, and I live in Glasgow, and I'm not confident for Munster because they know it's Scots and it's not. But they have a strong team. I have to go for Munster. I can't.
Okay, the Irish women playing France.
I actually have a sneak for our women, by the way. I really do, because they're improving every game they play, and something. Yeah. What a statement that would be to go out and beat the French, and we have a chance.
Okay, Bulls. Okay. Thanks, Mike. Bulls are taking on Leinster.
If there's anywhere else, only fucking Pretoria, I would give Leinster a chance, but I don't see it, lads. I genuinely think Bulls could turn you over.
Yeah, I agree with you. Dragons are playing Dragons at home to Ulster, Mike.
I think Ulster do the job there in is it Cardiff they play or Shepstone or somewhere like that.
I don't know, who cares? Ospreys are playing Connacht.
Ospreys, Connacht.
All right. Okay, gentlemen, that is all we have time for. Of course, we have gone way over time. So my thanks are to all of you for watching and your comments and opinions. Thank you very much. My thanks to Mike Reedy, to Dara Weston, and of course our special guest all the way from Texas, Justin Fitzpatrick. Thank you, Justin, for your time. It has been much appreciated. We have enjoyed your comments, your opinions on the game itself and the subject matter that we indeed spoke about and discussed. So, Justin and gentlemen, thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and we will chat again very soon. All right. Good luck and good night. Take care.
Thanks to everybody.
Yeah, all the best, guys. Yeah.